Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And we're going to have so much fun today because we have a repeat guest. I love it when my guests have so much great information that we have to have them on again. And so please join me in welcoming back to the program, Wayne Mullins. Welcome back, Wayne.
Hey, Deb, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I know last time we had a great chat, so I'm certain this one will be the same.
We did. And, and amazingly enough, we were talking about this before we started. It was just earlier this year in January. Seems like it was a long time ago. I think COVID has just made our time, we don't have those things like the weekly networking meetings and things that kept us on track with what was going on. It's just kind of this, okay, we're somewhere.
Yep.
So let me remind people a little bit about you, and then we will dive into this. So Wayne is a husband, father of 4, founder, entrepreneur, and author. Over the past 20 years, he's had the privilege of scaling multiple companies and helping hundreds of entrepreneurs do the same with their companies. Wayne's marketing agency, Ugly Mug Marketing, has won the praises of some of the leading influencers in the business world, such as Neil Patel, the founder of QuickSprout, Chris Voss, the author of Never Split the Difference, and Greg McKeown, author of Essentialism and Effortless. There's nothing Wayne loves more than helping entrepreneurs push through limiting beliefs and achieve more than they thought possible. So again, Wayne, welcome.
Thank you so much, Deb. I appreciate it.
Great. Well, I always like hearing about how our guests got to where they are today. So tell us a little bit about that. But I think I didn't ask last time how you got the name of your agency. It's a little bit different. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So the name Ugly Mug Marketing actually is a play on a phrase from a gentleman of the name David Ogilvy. Mm-hmm. So anyone who's been kind of around marketing for a length of time would probably be familiar with David Ogilvy's name. Mm-hmm. David Ogilvy came over to the United States in the late 50s, I believe, and landed in New York. His background was marketing. That was his passion. Mm-hmm. And he started an ad agency there in New York City. And over the course of about a 15-year window, he took that little startup, that little idea, and transformed it into the world's largest ad agency. Mm-hmm. And even to this day, they're still Ogilvy and Mather is the name of the agency. Mm-hmm. They're still in the top 10 in the world with offices, kind of scattered
everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah. So David had this quote or this phrase that he was notorious for saying in his offices as he would travel around. Mm-hmm. And the phrase was this: I would rather an ad that's ugly and effective than one that's beautiful and not effective. Mm. And so the name Ugly Mug Marketing is simply a play off of that, but it serves for us as this North Star. Mm-hmm. It reminds us that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we win design awards. It doesn't matter if we enter all these competitions and receive the praises and the feedback, all the accolades from people in our industry. What matters to us is the ability to get results for the people we work for. And at the end of the day, those results often can be the difference between a business succeeding or a business staying stagnant or ultimately failing.
Right. I love that, and we see that in everything, film industry, great example. Somebody creates a film that wins every award under the sun, but nobody goes to see. Or like you said, we create these wonderful, great, funny, emotional, whatever ads, but nobody sells product. And it really is about being effective. And sometimes it is let's not say ugly, we'll say plain, simple, basic type of content that catches somebody's attention. And sometimes that really is why it catches somebody's attention, because it's not the flashy, the billing, all of those things. We're like, okay, we like this.
Yeah, it keeps us focused. Like you were saying, it keeps us focused on the end result. We don't get distracted by the byproducts. In other words, we don't get distracted by creating something clever for the sake of something clever, creating something flashy, or going all over the place for the sake of doing that. It forces us to always think back through, why did they bring us here in the first place? In other words, why did the client bring us on in the first place? And, depending on the client we're working with, but the one word is results. So whether that's a nonprofit trying to raise funds or trying to get volunteers, or a for-profit who's trying to increase revenue, increase profitability, at the end of the day, people do marketing, or should be doing marketing, for results, not for all the other peripheral or side things that can often distract us if we're not careful.
Right. And any of us who have been in this business a while, we've walked into agencies and we've seen, the walls of plaques, statues, all of those various things. And that is impressive. It's impressive if you're a new client and, and you walk in and you see all of that. But then, of course, the question should be, but what results did they get? And frequently that is, we won the silver, award, or all those things. Sorry, that's great, but.
Yeah. Awards don't put money in the bank account, right? Awards, for us to win an award for a great website or a creative campaign, that doesn't put money in our client's bank account, or that doesn't create new donors for a nonprofit or new participants or new volunteers. And, I think for us as marketers, big picture, not just us as an agency, but big picture as marketers, I think we often get distracted by these shiny objects. We call it the shiny objects.
I'm like, oh, squirrel.
Yeah. Well, it's in entrepreneurs' DNA, right? That's part of what enables us to see problems, to find solutions to problems that are in the marketplace, and to be able to quickly move and quickly jump to those things, all for solutions. But if we're not careful, that strength, that ability to constantly jump or jump to the new thing, can become a weakness for us. And when it relates to marketing, what happens is we often see people jumping from guru to guru, right? It's like, oh, well, this person's talking about this right now.
Oh, this is the best book on New York Times.
Yeah, this is the thing. Or, this is the new platform. Everyone's on this platform. We've got to be on this platform. And so what happens is we're bouncing from thing to thing to thing. And in that process, we're completely ignoring strategy. We're completely ignoring the underlying frameworks. We're jumping from tactic to tactic. And I would go as far as saying this, that if someone listening is frustrated by their marketing results, chances are good you are jumping from tactic to tactic, or platform to platform, or guru to guru, if you will, instead of being focused on the few fundamental strategies that are tried and true, based on human psychology, that just work over and over again, regardless of the platform, regardless of what the creative is, from print, internet, billboard. It doesn't matter. When you understand some basic strategies, they make so much, they make everything so much easier. They make everything so much more effective.
Right. And you've written a great new book. And for those who are watching, I'm holding it up. And for those who are listening, it's called Full Circle Marketing: Transform Your Marketing and Turn Customers into Evangelists. And the key in the book, and it is even hardcover, half an inch. I mean, this is not a big book, which I loved. It's got fabulous content, but it follows the principle of what you're talking about. There's no need to have, War and Peace to talk about marketing, because it really comes back to some simple things. And I love in the book that you talk about the fact that it really does come back to the principles that were started in 1910. And really, when we examine what is successful, what they did back then still obviously carries forward. It isn't the flashiest, the catchiest, the coolest, the greatest influencer. Influencers drive me nuts. It's the basics. And so that's really what we want to talk about, because we have so many people who listen to this program who are entrepreneurs and small business owners, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And oh, there's this new thing that came out, and I still have to sell my product. And so it really is about keeping it simple. So kind of walk us through some of the principles.
Sure, absolutely. I would begin with what you just alluded to, Deb, and that is, the principles that work today are the same principles that have worked literally for more than 100 years. And actually, although they may not have been written about in the same way, have worked throughout human history, right? They're based on basic human psychology. And when we think of human psychology, we know that in order for someone to get to the point of pulling out their wallet and handing us money, there are a few things that must be true. Number one, they have to know about us, right? Because if they don't know about us, our product or service, there's no chance they're going to pull out the wallet and hand us money. Number two, they actually have to like whatever it is that we provide. If they hate whatever product or service we provide, they're never going to get to that point. And then the final thing that is the element that I think is the most important and the most overlooked is this magic word called trust. Trust is required. So when people know about us, when they like us, and when they trust that our product's going to do what we say it's going to do, that we as a company are going to stand behind our product in the event something does go wrong, and that they're going to receive more value from the product than they're actually giving us for the product, then that is kind of the core of the basics of all sales, the way all sales take place. And for us as marketers, where we get in trouble, I think, is when we forget these basic little simple steps, right? When we overlook these things, we get into trouble. And like you were saying, we're following the latest guru who's out there talking about, oh, here's how I gained 10,000 followers over the weekend. Here's the things you need to do. And so what I would say is, and again, we can dive into these, but in the book, I really lay out two core frameworks. And what I would argue is these frameworks, again, will work regardless of the brand, regardless of the industry, for profit, not for profit. It doesn't matter, because it's tied back to us as humans and the way we think and the way we operate.
Right. And one of those is an acronym, AIDA. So tell us what those stand for, and then let's really delve into each one of them.
Absolutely. So I call it AIDA. I don't know if that's how you would actually say that.
Yeah, word. I was like, Ida.
Hey, I have no clue. And I never can remember the word in acronym. So thank you so much for saying that. So AIDA comes, and this is the one you're referring to. It actually was first written about way back in 1910 was the first time somebody actually wrote about this concept as it relates to marketing and sales. And so the first A in that is attention. And that's pretty obvious. If we don't capture people's attention, we can never then bring them through our marketing funnel if we don't at least get their initial attention. And so that's step one. So when you think about creating whatever piece of marketing you're looking to create, the first question you have to ask yourself is, what can we do with this piece? So whether it's radio, television, billboard, internet, whatever it is, what can we do with this piece to actually capture attention? What can we do to cause people to stop in their tracks and pay attention to whatever it is we're getting ready to talk about? So that's the first A. The next letter is the I, and that is interest. And one of the things that I think is so important here is that we must remember that people are interested in their interests, not in our products or services.
Right.
They are interested in the things they are interested in, not necessarily in our products or services. And if we're not careful, what happens is we start to believe that people actually care about our product or services, right? That they're interested in our product or service. And the reality is they're not. They're interested in whatever that thing is. So let's just use the example of golf. If you love golf and you make golf clubs, right? That's the business that you're in. It would be a mistake to begin thinking that people are interested in your brand of golf club.
Right.
The reality is they're interested in this game called golf.
Mm-hmm.
They're interested in the best tool possible to help them keep their score low.
Mm-hmm.
If that happens to be your clubs, your brand of clubs that you make, great.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to start winning that interest. You're going to start winning that attention, right? Because you're providing something that meets their interest, that helps them with the thing they're interested in. So that's the interest. So once we capture the attention, we have to make sure that we are speaking to their interest, not speaking about our product or service, but speaking to that interest. And then the next letter in this AIDA is the D, and that is desire. Desire begins in each of us when we realize that something better may be possible. So if we're using the golf club analogy, if you're interested in golf, you love golf, and you've been playing for a long time, you've got these clubs you've been playing with for 5 or 6 years or however long it may be, you're not desiring a new set of clubs until you're out on the course. And your friend that you've been playing with for years got this new set, and now they're driving the ball further than you.
They're winning.
They're winning. They're more accurate with their shots than you. And so it sparks this idea in your head that, hey, maybe something better is available out there. Maybe these other clubs are available. And so when we think, again, tying this back, we captured their attention. We cause them to stop and pay attention to what we're talking about. We're speaking to their interests, not necessarily about our product or service. And now we have to look for, how do we evoke this desire that something better is possible, something better is available to them. That is the D. And then the final letter in this whole framework is this. It is action. What specific action do we want them to take?
Right.
Now, Deb, we do this all the time. We work with clients from all over the country, all over the world. And when we initially go in and analyze people's marketing pieces, this is the biggest mistake across the board, regardless of industry, regardless of for-profit or not for-profit. People get extremely sloppy when it comes to the call to action, the last A.
Right.
When we think of this call to action, what's important for people to remember is we need to give them the exact next step that we want them to take based on what they've just discovered, right? Based on this new desire, or this desire that we've evoked within them. What is the next logical step that we want them to take? And how do we quickly and clearly articulate that in our messaging?
Right. And it's not always spend money.
No, absolutely not. That's spot on, because I think what happens is we assume that we're going to take people from the first ad they see about our product or service to them handing us money in one swoop or in one simple little ad.
Right.
And again, that goes back to that short-sightedness that we as marketers, myself included, we fall into, because marketing is this thing that's supposed to, when done correctly, make selling unnecessary. And what I mean by that is, when our marketing system is designed properly, when our marketing system is functioning the way it should, we shouldn't have to beg. We shouldn't have to plead. We shouldn't have to prod. We shouldn't have to cajole and beg people to buy our services. Instead, our marketing system will do that lifting for us. And so by the time we get to that point of saying, okay, do you want the product? Do you want the service? Do you want to sign up? Do you want to donate money? We shouldn't have to do all of that.
Right.
Our marketing system.
It's a given.
It's a given. Yeah, that is it.
Yeah. And I love this concept because it is simple, but complicated all at the same time, because you do have to think through all of this. And it's, as we were saying at the start, so many people, marketers, companies, whoever, get stuck in that attention. Hey, we're going to do whatever it is to catch somebody's attention. And they don't stop to think, then what? And that is, of course, the key is, you've got their attention, then what? And we also always fall under the illusion that what we have is the greatest thing in the world, and people would just obviously want to buy it. Well, no, there's, and especially in this day and age, I mean, there are really no products that are absolutely positively head and shoulders above everybody else, and I know I just crushed every business person out there, but there's good and bad out of everything, whether it's, price. I mean, there's so many different things that tie into it. So, there's really, you have to do these other things in order to convince somebody, oh, hey, yeah, that really is the one that I want to at least call or go to their website or do whatever, take that action piece.
Yeah, that is it. I mean, that is spot on, because again, when the mindset we often approach this from is that entrepreneurial mindset of jumping from thing to thing. So we're going to throw our attention to marketing for a brief moment. And in that brief moment, we know that attention is important, right? So we want to capture attention. In the world that we live in a lot, we hear the words thrown around, impressions, reach, frequency. We hear all these buzzwords that are important,
right?
But if those things are not tied into a marketing system that is based on results, those metrics become vanity metrics, right? So it's easy to go out there and brag about, our recent campaign captured the attention of, in other words, reached, X number of thousand people. But the question simply becomes okay, that's great. What did you do with that attention?
Right.
Did you actually use that attention that you spent money on to capture? Did you actually use that attention and progress people forward in your marketing system or in your sales funnel, if you will?
Right. And it's complicated, as we said, and simple at the same time. But once you master it, it really is simple, because when you do it right, it's easy to repeat. And of course, that's the key for people is, you figure it out, you figure out that secret sauce. It really, it doesn't matter, you develop a new product, a new service, you go back, you do the exact same things that you have done before that you knew were successful. Now you may have to tweak things a little bit, but yeah, once you figured it out, it is what's going to work every time.
Yeah, that is it. And the thing about a system like this, so when we think about the AIDA framework, what it does is when we begin applying this to our marketing is it gives us specific points to audit. So we can look at our advertising and say, okay, great. We captured attention, but we didn't speak to their interests. So we didn't move them to that next level, to that next phase. So we can go back and say, okay, we captured all of this attention. It's great, but it didn't convert. So we need to move back up there and say, okay, are we speaking to their interest? The advertising that we're doing, is it speaking in terms of the actual benefits to them? Or, as we're often guilty of, are we using all these features, speaking in terms of features? And the classic example of that is way back in the day when Apple released the iPod, and around that same time, Microsoft released what was called the Zune, Z-U-N-E.
Right.
And
I think they got one on Big Bang Theory. If I remember right, Sheldon talked about that one time and everybody laughed, right?
Yeah. The thing is this, that between the two devices, the Apple iPod versus the Microsoft Zune, hands down, the Microsoft product was a better product. It had more storage. It was able to do more things. Not only could you do songs, but you could do all these other things with it. The iPod only did songs and it didn't hold as many as the Zune.
Right.
But the difference in the marketing lesson or the marketing that each of these companies used was this. Microsoft, when they presented all the facts and figures. They presented all the data.
And everybody went,
yeah. It was all the features, right? It was, the data, it holds X number, all these things, listed all these things out. Whereas Apple, what did they do? Their marketing, the entire campaign was two things. Number one, the slogan was 1,000 songs in your pocket. Very easy to remember, clearly communicates what the thing actually does, right? When you hear that, okay, this is a music player. It'll hold 1,000 songs. It will fit in my pocket. The other thing that Apple did that was brilliant, probably one of the most brilliant marketing strategies that is overlooked, so we don't observe that this actually took place, is the headphones that came with this device called an iPod, the cables and the headphones were white. At that time, every single headphone that was sold was typically a black cable, black headphones,
right,
or some other dark color. Apple released white corded headphones. So anytime you got it on a train, an airplane, walked in a public space, you immediately knew who had the Apple device. And Apple was brilliant enough to, in their advertising, all that they showed were these silhouettes dancing,
with
and
the
all
white.
you could see the white headphones. And so they're communicating a message here that when you see the white, you know that this is an Apple product. And so those white headphones became this piece that ultimately created this army of evangelists. So they have all these people out there wearing the white headphones. And when you or I or anybody else saw the white headphones, we knew this was somebody wearing an Apple or using an Apple product.
Right.
So they're empowering the people, the customers who paid for this device, and they weren't cheap, paid for the device to go out and promote it for them.
Right.
So quite brilliant.
Well, and it really was absolutely brilliant, because you looked around and you went 1, 2, 3, 4, and not even counting. I mean, you just, and then it was, the cool kids have it. And because the cool kids have it, I must have it too. And the funny thing is that still carries over. I mean, you don't really see a lot of other, whether it's an earbud or, headphones or things like that, that aren't, the white ones are still, for the most part, Apple.
Yeah, no, they're brilliant about that. And, what happens is, there's so many great lessons like that for us as entrepreneurs and as marketers. If we're watching, not for what they're saying, but we're really watching what they're actually doing through their messaging,
right,
and the way that they release the products. And, for the longest time, if you think back, I'll get off the Apple soapbox here in a second, but if you think back, all the original Apple MacBook laptops, the Apple on the back, when the screen was open, the Apple was white and it glowed.
Right.
So when your computer was on, it glowed. So as there was this, the spread of Starbucks and coffee shops around the world, people going in these cafes, opening up their computers, again, people were marketing for this brand called Apple. And again, just a brilliant way of identifying, creating this army of evangelists and allowing them to help spread your message for you.
Right. And I love the concept of evangelists. We're going to talk about the circle, but evangelists are the key. And it's funny, in the book you talk about, and we see this all the time, I can see an ad for something 20, 30 times. Doesn't really matter. I'm expecting the ad to say our product is the latest, greatest, whatever in the world. But when I see a friend of mine who I might not even know on Facebook say, oh my gosh, I got this and it's the coolest thing in the world. Or even better, worse, we're on Amazon, we scroll down, we read the reviews. Total strangers have more sway over us than the actual company. And that's that whole evangelist principle.
That is it. I mean, you said it spot on. We live in a cynical and skeptical world. And as marketers or as entrepreneurs, we are the ones they don't trust.
Right.
Why is that? Because they understand that we have a vested interest. They understand that we are biased around our product or services.
Right. We're not going to say
No, we're going to say only the positives. We're going to say only the good things. And what I think is so important is that we remember, like you said, that people would rather trust strangers they've never met than to trust you or I as the marketer or as the entrepreneur or business owner. And, there's lots of factors in that, lots of psychology behind that. Trust being the big equation in that. Trust is kind of that magic word. We trust people who don't appear to have a vested interest.
Right.
We trust people who we know, like, and trust, right? Therefore, our friends, our family members. And we, as you said, we're naturally skeptical or cynical of the marketer, of the company itself.
Right. And it's interesting because I'm one of those, I always read the negatives also. And I might not read all of them, but, I read, and I usually I do look at the most current just to see, okay, maybe they change things. But, part of that too, is I want to see, and obviously it depends on the platform, did the company respond to those negatives? And I tell this to my clients all the time, because if they get a negative review, many times it's like, oh God, sky falling. And I say, and they say, let's not do anything. I say, no. It's very important to respond, even if we have to respond fairly basic, because sometimes, there are some reasons why we can't, say, Bob is a horrible person, and Bob hates all of our products. It's the response that we give is for the other people who read it, and the reason, and I always love it when they say, well, make the bad ones go away. No, the point of reviews is that they're unbiased. And so you will have negatives along with positives. And so the whatever it is, Google, Yelp, Facebook, all of those things, they want it. It's not that they want the negative reviews, but you can't get rid of the negative reviews because they want it to be unbiased. And so again, it's that, total stranger, what are they saying? But then, okay, what did the company do to try and make it better? Yeah,
no, I completely agree with that advice. Sticking our head in the sand is not the right approach when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I would say as it relates to, kind of our mentality as entrepreneurs or as marketers is this. Bain & Company, big consulting firm, did this survey where they went around and they surveyed just under 4,000 small businesses around the United States. And they went to the owners of these companies and they said, we want you to rank yourself using these 5 levels on the level of service that you provide to your customers. So here are the options that you have, Mr. or Miss Business Owner. Level number 1 is you provide superior service. In other words, you're above everyone else in your industry. You're phenomenal. Number 2 is you provide good service. Number 3 is you provide average service. Number 4 is you provide just mediocre, right? So you're below average. And then the last one was you provide terrible service. So Bain & Company sends this survey. They do this survey with almost 4,000 businesses. And the results come back in that 80% of small business owners in the United States rank themselves as providing superior service.
Right. Oh yeah. We think we're doing a fabulous job.
Yeah. And so then Bain & Company says that data just doesn't seem right. Like it's way too skewed in that direction. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go back to those companies and get permission to go actually ask their customers the same question. So Bain & Company goes out to the customers of these 4,000 companies and they say, okay, we know you've done business with this company. How would you rank their level of service using these 5 same levels? And the results came back in, Deb, and the results were this: only 8% of those customers actually rank those businesses as providing superior service.
So painful.
On the one hand, we have business owners, entrepreneurs who rated themselves as 80% of them said we provide superior service. You ask the customers of those companies and only 8% agree with that or rated them the same. And so we can be jaded in the positive way, right? We have blinders on. And so we don't see these negative things. And so when the negative review comes in, what happens is we often get furious. We get emotional. Like, how could you?
You've hurt our child.
That's exactly right. You've called our baby ugly. And there's a phrase that I picked up from a friend of mine named Ari Weinswig. And he says, when furious, get curious. So when something evokes that emotion in us, right? When it causes us to get furious, we should take that emotion and turn it into curiosity. It's easy to say, I'll admit, it's very easy to say that, very tough to do. But when we begin digging, when we begin prodding, we get curious. Why is it that they gave us the review that they did? Why did they say these bad things about us? there's often so many powerful lessons for us, whether it's as a marketer or as an entrepreneur, that we can pick up if we're willing to transform that furious, tendency into curiosity.
Right. And you should be curious because you should want to fix it. And so you need to know, okay, is this a staffing issue? Is this a product issue? All of those various things. I think one of the funniest reviews I ever saw one time, when we travel quite a bit. And so if it's someplace we're not familiar with, I'll look at hotel reviews. And this one review said, this is a, great hotel, except it's really noisy because, of all of the bars that are around it. And I thought, I'm pretty sure I know where this is. That doesn't sound right. And so, I'm reading more, and the hotel responded and they said, thank you so much for your comments. We appreciate getting them, yada, yada, yada. However, our hotel is surrounded by automobile dealerships. So we think you must have the wrong hotel. And so they did it kind of tongue in cheek. They didn't say, you idiot. We think you might have the wrong place. And so, you look at that and you laugh, but at the same point, they could have also said, maybe it was true. We're working on soundproofing better. We're, whatever the various things are. And of course, the key is you never, ever lie, with any of this. It's those evangelists are so very important to doing business.
Yeah, we live in a world today where, when I say this, everyone's like, well, duh, I already knew that. Right. But we live in a world today where every single person, for the most part, has this little device they carry in their back pocket or in their purse. And that device gives them the ability at any point in time to broadcast messages literally to the world. Never before in human history has each individual had such power in terms of reaching so many people with their thoughts or whatever it is they want to put out there to the world. And as marketers, I think we're so slow to coming to this realization, right? The companies who have embraced this and who have, like you said, have shifted their focus to actually creating evangelists, empowering these evangelists are the ones who are winning. They've learned how to empower those people with the smartphone in their pocket to help spread the message about their company, their product, their service, their brand.
Right. And we don't want to give all the secrets away because we want people to buy the book, but you talk about, how you accomplish this. I mean, somebody's not just going to buy your product. Yes, some people will and go, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world. I'm going to tell everybody under the sun. In many cases, they need to be asked, given permission, all of those various things, but then they need to know what to say, and so there are various ways that you can provide that information. So as I said, we don't want to give it all away, but what are a couple things that businesses should do to encourage this evangelism?
Sure. The very first thing I think is important, Deb, is this, that we get clear about the importance and the power of having what we would call evangelists for your brand. So when I often talk to entrepreneurs, one of the questions I love to ask is, where do your best customers come from? So if you were to think in your head of, the 5 or 10 absolute best customers you've ever had for your company, where did those people come from? And the answer always comes back. They came from word of mouth or they came from referral, right? So the people who come to us, who are our quote unquote best customers, they're often coming as a result of somebody else who loved our product so much, our service so much, that they were willing to share it with someone else. And we know this as business owners. We know that word of mouth and referrals are so vital to growth and to continuing, our mission, whatever that may be. And yet we give so little time and attention. We allocate so few dollars to actually making this happen. And so one of the arguments I attempt to make in the book is this, that when we think about marketing, marketing encompasses 2 things in my mind. Number one is your ability to attract customers, which we all know that's kind of the advertising part of marketing. But then there's this other side, which is the ability to keep customers. So your ability to attract and to keep. And when I use the term keep, I don't just mean, you sell them your product and a few years later they come back and buy another one or whatever, but how do we actually have intention behind taking these customers, nurturing those relationships, in converting them, if you will, into evangelists for our brand.
Right.
And one of the ways that I think is important, or one of the fundamental things that we must do, ties back into those expectations. We must sit down and ask ourselves, what does a reasonable person have the right to expect when dealing with us, when buying our product or service?
Right.
What does a reasonable person have the right to expect? And this goes back to that Bain and Company study. We are jaded. We believe by default that we are always exceeding expectations until we actually sit down and clearly identify at each point of contact, at each point of interaction with our brand, with our company, what is the actual expected outcome from the other side. Make a list of those things. And once we have that list in hand, so in other words, when the phone rings, what does a reasonable person expect in terms of the number of times it's going to ring before we answer? We write that down. Okay, it's 4 rings. The next question, how long do they expect to be on the phone call when they call in to place an order? Well, is it 2 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? What do they actually expect? Now, it's going to vary. That number, that answer is going to vary based on the industry, based on the product. When they go to our website, how many clicks do they expect it to take for them to check out? Is it 20? Is it 2? Right? There's not a right or wrong. It's going to vary. But what do they actually have the right to expect? And then the next question is, what would it actually look like for each of those steps if we exceeded expectations? What would it actually look like? So if they expect 4 rings, if we answer it in 2, that's a noticeable example of exceeding expectations. If they're going to expect 20 clicks when they get to the website because we have a complicated product that they're ordering, right? But if we can get that down to 10, that's a noticeable difference. It's exceeded expectations. So the number one thing that you and I can do as marketers, which we often don't believe this is our responsibility, but it's to ensure that our product or service, when delivered, once the money has changed hands, that it is clearly exceeding expectations.
Right.
And we all know the phrase, Deb, it's better to under-promise and over-deliver than over-promise and under-deliver. And yet, as marketers, if we are not involved in that back-end process, if we're not involved in following up with those customers post-sale, we don't know if we're actually over-delivering or under-delivering our product or service.
And so many companies just do that. They get to the, we took their money, see ya. They don't care whether it's an item that they might purchase again or not. I mean, it's just, they move on to the next client. And of course, that's where the difficulty comes in, and why sometimes we make life so hard for ourselves is we're continually looking for those new customers. And we're totally forgetting that the existing ones are really the absolute most important ones we need to be dealing with.
Yeah, that's it. There's all kinds of studies out there. Now, I'm sure most people listening have heard, it's infinitely cheaper to resell an existing customer than to go find a new one. And yet, as marketers, if we were to pull out our profit and loss statement and we were to go to the line item for marketing or advertising and ask ourselves this simple question, what percentage of our budget is spent on attracting customers? In other words, going out into the world and trying to convince people to hand
getting
us
their
money.
attention.
Yeah, exactly. Versus what percentage of our budget is, set aside for taking existing customers and converting them into evangelists, giving them tools, giving them the language that they need to go out and share and tell others about what it is that we do.
Right. And some of that really is pretty simple. One of the things that I was thinking of is, if you've captured their emails, depends on what you're doing as to whether you do that or not. You send them, say, a coupon or a discount. Please share this with 5 of your friends. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And of course, the key is it can be used by 500 people. I mean, don't just make it something that can be used 5 times, because if they share it to a 6th person and the 6th person can't use it, that person gets really annoyed. But that's something so simple that people can do. And we see that, with so many things where they post it on Facebook. They do whatever. And it really is a pretty simple way, because they're not just going to say, hey, I got this coupon for, whatever. They're going to say why they think you should use this coupon also.
Yeah, that is it. And, again, I think it's just the intention around the backside of that process, the other half of the equation. Deb, are you familiar with the name Joe Girard?
No.
Okay, so some of your listeners may or may not be familiar with his name. Joe Girard holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the greatest car salesman of all time. Now, I don't know what the official Guinness Book of World Record title is, but it's something along those lines. Joe was in car sales for 15 years. And over the course of that 15-year period, Joe sold over 12,000 cars. Wow. No fleet sales, all one-on-one. So it wasn't like he was going out and selling 50 cars at a time. It was all these one-on-one transactions. And the way Joe did this, he's got a book out where he talks about this. The way Joe did this was that every single time somebody bought a car from him, every single month from that day forward, they got something in the mail from Joe. They got a card in the mail from Joe. So each month he had a different card. It was based on, the time of year. So, if it's October, it's going to be something Halloween, probably.
Right. Happy Halloween, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Spring is here, whatever it is. Joe would hand sign all of these cards. And so you think about this compounding effect over time. Joe built this army of evangelists.
Right.
Why? Because he was investing in people after the point of sale. And, for me, I'll speak for myself. Again, it goes back to this short-sightedness. We get people to that point of sale. And what do most salespeople do? They quickly run back out there and go try to find the next person to sell. Joe devoted time. He devoted attention. He devoted money into nurturing those relationships with those people he had already sold, month in, month out, sending all those cards to all those people. And look, the evidence is, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. Joe sold more cars than any other car salesman has ever sold in his career. And year after year, he did that. And it wasn't because he had the most clever marketing. It wasn't because he was broadcasting to the world to come buy from him. It was because he was investing in nurturing, in building evangelists for himself as a salesperson.
And so those people went back to him time and time again. And they told people, oh my gosh, it's been 4 years since I bought a car and I still get a card. And it's funny because there are companies that do that. There are realtors who follow up, and they, maybe not every month, but they follow up quarterly, and just all of these things. And part of that is that top of mind thing. They want to keep you remembering, oh yeah, I got this great whatever from Joe. And somebody says, hey, we need a new car. I got the person I need you to talk to, and so that's it is. And, and of course the key though is that, you can't forget the other things, because, I might tell somebody, hey, you need to buy this car from Joe. The first thing they're going to do is research maybe Joe's car dealership or things like that. So you have to have the other things in place. And you use an example in the book of that, where, somebody says, hey, I want to buy this. And then she immediately started researching them. So you do have to have your collateral in place and all of those things in order to kind of work them back through that. So, it is this constant circle, and that's the thing, is it really is a circle. The people that make it hard are making it the wall, where they hit, they go back, they hit, they go back. And aside from anything else, that just is incredibly expensive, both time and money, to be starting over all the time.
Yeah, it's the spaghetti strategy. We take a pot of spaghetti, we throw it against the wall, we see what sticks, and then everything else is just waste. It goes back to that that saying that, you may have heard that 50% of my marketing is working, 50% doesn't. I just don't know which half is working.
Yeah, which is half.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the what side that's working.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it, I think, so much ties back into that whole idea of exceeding expectations
Mm-hmm.
and being intentional around nurturing those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about Joe, the car salesman,
Mm-hmm.
if he were selling lemons, so in other words, the cars were pieces of junk,
Right.
they fell apart, the engines didn't work, and there was all these issues,
Mm-hmm.
it wouldn't matter that Joe was following up every month.
Right. Because
right?
people have that bad impression.
Yeah. So when people then reached out to, whoever bought the car
Mm-hmm.
and said, hey, do you know anyone, I'm looking for a car. Do you know
Mm-hmm.
someone? Their answer is going to be different. Their answer is going to be,
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you one person not to go see.
No, yeah. Do not go to Joe. Mm-hmm.
But it goes back to that exceeding expectations,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do they actually receive more value
Mm-hmm.
from our product or service than expected?
Mm-hmm.
Are
Right.
we living up to that?
Mm-hmm.
And that is at the end of the day, I think, so important.
Mm-hmm.
And it ties into this whole thing of, our brand as an
Mm-hmm.
organization isn't what we believe about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Our brand is what other people believe about
Right.
us.
Mm-hmm.
And so for Joe, he had a great product. His cars were great. Yes, you could get the same car probably any other dealership, but he made them exceptional
Mm-hmm.
by his follow-up.
Right.
He fostered that relationship and he created this perception, like you were talking about, all these collateral pieces around himself
Mm-hmm.
that reinforce, so that when someone says, yeah, you should go check out Joe, he's a great
Mm-hmm.
guy, and they begin doing the research, all the collateral pieces reinforced what they intuitively or inherently believe to be true based on that recommendation from their friend.
And it has to be meaningful. I was just thinking, I bought a new pickup earlier this year, as used, but new to me pickup. And several times a month, I get emails from the dealership. I never open a single one because there's nothing there to make me want to open them. They somehow I just have gotten in that cycle of their automation where, hey, we send a, free oil change. Hey, we send this, hey, we send that. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, and they never, they've skipped that human step of making that connection. And it was funny because I really liked the person that we dealt with, but there was never any follow-up from her, and I actually liked that it was a female. I thought that selling me a pickup, I just thought that was very cool. But there was none of that. And so they're trying to make me an evangelist and I could care less.
Yeah. I think that's an important lesson for all of us listening, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that it's the little things that go a long way. Again, this goes back to that kind of common sense stuff, right? The little things go a long way. So now flip that script and imagine that every quarter or once a month, even you got a little handwritten note from the person who sold you your truck, right? That's going to stand out. That's going to make the impact.
Yep.
Even if the note simply said, hey, Deb, just wanted to make sure you saw the email for your free oil change.
Right.
Yeah,
because I'm going to, wait, I missed an email.
Then you're going to go open the email. So standing out isn't about big budgets. Standing out, being remarkable isn't about the most complicated, the most complex marketing systems at all. Often it's about doing the little things that we know we should do, but that we convince ourselves we're too busy to do.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I'm in the boat. I understand how busy we are. We have a million plates spinning, a million things going on. But if we want to build this full circle, if we want to build kind of this perpetual marketing machine that's constantly generating leads for us, we have to be willing to do things differently than we're doing them today.
Right. And to come back full circle, it is what we were talking about at the start. It's not about doing the latest, the greatest, the flashiest, all of those things. I always think about Super Bowl commercials. Sure, they're fun. They're great. They are, in my humble opinion, a horrific waste of money. And it comes back to, they want those awards, they want those eyeballs, all of those things. One of my favorite commercials, Super Bowl commercials of all time, is probably 20 years old by now. The herding cats one, right? Where, and I think I remember, because if I remember right, it actually played when the Denver Broncos were playing, but it was cute. It caught your attention. They're herding cats. I would be surprised if, they didn't get their money back in new clients. And, it was great. It won awards. It was fun, but it didn't do what it should have done. And so that's what we all have to remember. And that's, what we have to remember when we're creating our materials. What is the goal of this? It's not the cute. It's not the fun. Yes, we have to get somebody's attention, but then what?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have said it better than that. The way I would recap all of that would just be this, that effective marketing isn't going to happen on accident, right? Mm-hmm. Effective marketing doesn't just happen. And it certainly doesn't happen when we jump from thing to thing to thing. Mm-hmm. When we chase the latest influencer, mm-hmm. when we chase the latest guru, that is not effective marketing. Mm-hmm. Effective marketing, I really believe, it happens when intention, so the mm-hmm. things we intend to do, and our action collide. In other mm-hmm. words, when we intend to do those things that we know we should do, mm-hmm. and then we actually make ourselves mm-hmm. do those things. So when our intentions and our actions collide, that is where effective marketing truly mm-hmm. begins for us.
Right. Oh my gosh. This has been so much fun, and we are almost at the top of the hour. I still have notes here. So we have to do this again, but I'm going to encourage people to buy your book. Again, it's called Full Circle Marketing, Transforming Your Marketing and Turn Customers into Evangelists. Because there's two things, especially, that I want people actually three, that I really want people to look at in the book. One is an avatar. You absolutely, positively have to know who you are selling to. And if your answer to that question is everyone, no. We need to talk about natural progression, how we get people through this process. And finally, they need to read about a marketing rock, which really was a rock. And so I want people to get the book, but more importantly, for people who are going, oh my gosh, we know we need to do this. What the heck? How do they reach you? And what are the services that you provide?
Sure. Yeah. So if you want to just pick up the book, I mean, first of all, it's available on all the retailers online. You can get any of those.
You're smart marketing people. It has its own website.
We do. So if you want some bonuses along with your order, you can go to yourfullcirclemarketing.com mm-hmm. and you can, again, you'll still order from wherever you want to order, but you'll just come back there and enter your order info. And then for us as a company or as an organization, our web address is uglymugmarketing.com. And we've got links to socials and email addresses and all that right there on that one site.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. I love it. And, it is something that whether you're somebody who has $1 million budget, or more importantly, somebody who might have $1,000 budget, how do you make sure that you're getting the best bang for your buck? And it really is in being simple and going back to those principles that, worked for hundreds of years, long before we had Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and, all of those other things, or even, major media, TV, all of those things. It is so simple. And that's what I think people get so caught up in. And so I really want to encourage people to contact you, to read your book, to go to your website, because you've got lots of great blog articles, things like that, to find out how, we can stop getting long gray hairs over, this, and more importantly, be doing what it is we want to do, which is, helping people with what we're doing with our products and our services.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for those kind words, Deb. And as always, I've enjoyed our conversation. I love chatting about marketing and, mm-hmm. Helping people kind of see things from a different perspective or a different light. So hopefully they picked up a little something today from our chat.
Cool. I love it. Well, do you have any final words of wisdom you want to leave everyone with?
I would just say this, that, when we learn to be consistent with whatever it is in our business. Mm-hmm. So I'm speaking bigger picture here than just marketing. Mm-hmm. That consistency really does create miracles, mm-hmm. but it doesn't happen overnight. Again, it goes back to what we originally talked about. We can be squirrels as entrepreneurs, jumping mm-hmm. from thing to thing to thing. But when we put some consistency in intentionality behind what we're doing over time, it has that compounding effect. And I love to say consistency does create miracles, but we have to be willing to sacrifice. We have to be willing to give up our tendency to jump to the next latest, greatest thing, to stay focused on the fundamentals and what we know will work over time.
Great. I love it. Well, I've been having an absolutely wonderful conversation. I love talking marketing, and so we'll have Wayne on again because he's got such great content. But I've been talking with Wayne Mullins of Ugly Mug Marketing. I'm Deb Creer, and until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.